Long ago in a bustling town in West Africa, there lived a humble woman named Abeni. She was known for her strength, her warm smile, and her ability to work tirelessly under the sun. Abeni was widowed when her only son, Kofi, was still a small boy, and from that day she carried the weight of both father and mother on her shoulders. She tilled the land, fetched water, sold firewood in the market, and did everything she could so that Kofi might have a better life than she did. Neighbors used to say that Abeni's hands were like the roots of an ancient baobab tree, strong, rough, but full of life. When Kofi cried for food, she went without eating to make sure he never slept hungry. When he needed school fees, she carried heavy baskets of cassava and maize to the market. Even when her back ached from dawn to dusk, she clothed him with dignity, even if she herself wore the same faded wrapper for many years. Kofi was bright, clever, and ambitious. From a young age, he dreamt not of the farms or the local market, but of the city, where tall buildings touched the sky and wealth seemed to pour like rain. Abeni encouraged him because she wanted him to fly higher than she ever could. She sold her goats and even the small piece of jewelry her late husband had given her, just so Kofi could attend a good school. She whispered prayers over him every night, asking the ancestors to guide his steps. Time passed, and Kofi indeed soared. He went to university in the city, and there his brilliance shone. He met investors, learned business, and started trading. Within a few years, Kofi's name became known. He drove sleek cars, wore expensive suits, and lived in a house so grand that even the elders in his village could not believe a boy from such humble beginnings had achieved such greatness. People praised him, called him a blessing, and looked at Abeni with admiration, saying, "Truly, the tree is known by its fruit." But with wealth came a change. Kofi's heart began to drift away from the soil where he was rooted. The boy who once sat on the ground eating roasted yam with his mother now dined in restaurants with polished floors and golden chandeliers. When he married a woman from the city, Amma, a woman with eyes sharp as glass and a tongue quick with scorn, his world shifted even further. Amma loved Kofi, but she did not love his background. She saw Abeni as a burden, a shadow of the past that embarrassed her in her glittering world of parties and status. At first, Abeni lived quietly in the grand house, helping in small ways, blessing the home with her prayers, sitting in the garden under the mango tree, humming the songs of her ancestors. But Amma began to whisper to Kofi, "Your mother is too old-fashioned. She does not belong here. She sits on the ground when guests come. She tells stories that make people laugh at her simplicity. This is not good for your image." Kofi resisted at first, but little by little, the whispers turned into arguments. One evening, in the middle of the rainy season, Amma stood firm and said, "Either she goes or I do." That night, Kofi walked into his mother's room. Abeni was sitting on her mat shelling ground nuts, humming the lullaby she once sang to him as a child. He could not look into her eyes as he spoke. "Mama," he said, "life has changed. You cannot stay here anymore. I will send you some money, and you can return to the village." The ground nuts fell from her hand, rolling across the mat. She stared at her son, her voice trembling. "Kofi, my son, is this your wish?" "It is what must be," he answered, though his heart pounded. The next morning, without ceremony, without farewell, Abeni was put into a taxi with a small bag of clothes and sent back to the village she had left so many years ago. The neighbors were shocked. They whispered among themselves, "How can a son do this to the mother who carried him on her back through hunger and hardship?" Abeni returned to her small mud house, the one that had long been falling apart. She cooked with firewood, fetched her own water, and lived simply. But she did not curse her son. Instead, she lifted her eyes to the heavens each night and prayed, "May the ancestors open his eyes before it is too late." Years passed. Kofi's wealth grew, but so did his arrogance. He no longer visited the village, nor did he ask about his mother. Amr ruled his world, and together they rose higher in the circles of the wealthy. But the spirits of the land do not sleep, and the ancestors do not forget. One year, during the great festival of drums, the king of the region announced that he would honor the most outstanding son of the land. Kofi, with all his riches, was chosen. It was said that the king himself would pour palm wine into a calabash and offer it to the honored son, a symbol of eternal blessing. But there was a custom. Before the calabash could be accepted, the mother of the son must step forward to give her blessing, for no man is greater than the womb that bore him. The festival day came, the drums thundered, dancers twirled, and the whole town gathered. Kofi arrived in grand style, wearing flowing robes of gold, his wife glittering beside him. People cheered his name. The king stood, lifted the calabash, and said, "Let the mother of Kofi come forward so that we may complete the blessing." The crowd looked around. No mother appeared. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The elders asked, "Where is your mother, Kofi?" Kofi froze, his face pale. Amma squeezed his hand, but her eyes darted nervously. Finally, in a trembling voice, Kofi admitted, "She is in the village. She does not live with me." The king frowned deeply. How can the river forget its source? How can the tree deny its roots? Go, bring your mother, or there is no honor for you today. Ashamed, Kofi rushed to the village in his car. When he reached his mother's hut, he found her sitting on the floor, grinding millet. Her hands were rough, her wrapper torn, but her spirit glowed brighter than any jewel. Kofi fell to his knees, tears flooding his eyes. "Mama, forgive me. I have been blind. I need you to come with me to bless me before the people." But Abeni looked at him with calm eyes. She shook her head slowly and said, "My son, when you had a house of gold, you sent me away to live in mud. When you had a table of abundance, you let me eat alone. Now you seek my blessing in front of the people, not from your heart, but for your honor. My spirit cannot bless a heart that values shame over love." Kofi wept and begged, but Abeni rose and turned away. Word spread through the land that Kofi had been rejected by his own mother. The king withdrew his honor, saying, "A man who rejects his mother rejects the earth itself." From that day, Kofi's wealth began to crumble. Business deals failed, friends abandoned him, and Amma, who had once demanded his mother's absence, left him for another man of riches. Kofi found himself broken, sitting on the same mud floor where his mother once sat. But by then, Abeni had gone to join the ancestors. He cried at her grave, crying not only for her but for the man he had become. And the people said, "This is a lesson to us all. No matter how high a bird flies, it must never forget the tree where it built its nest. So let this story travel far. Share it with others, for it carries a truth that every son and daughter must remember." If this tale touched your heart, then like it, share it, and subscribe so that the wisdom of our ancestors will never be forgotten.